Hello, welcome to the Slow IELTS English Podcast, your calm companion for mastering English with confidence and clarity. Each episode helps you build natural fluency through thoughtful lessons and real practice. So sit back, relax, and let's get started.
Hello and welcome to IELTS English Listening. In today's episode, we'll talk about how BBC English, that is, learning English through real, natural British content, can transform the way you study, understand, and use English every day. So sit back, relax, and listen carefully. First, it helps you understand real-world English. In IELTS, or in daily life, you'll hear different accents, but BBC English gives you a strong foundation. Second, it improves your listening and pronunciation. By repeating phrases from BBC content, you naturally develop a better ear for rhythm and tone. Third, BBC English often uses academic and formal language, which is very useful for IELTS writing and speaking. You'll learn how to express complex ideas in simple, elegant ways, just like professional speakers. Let's take an example. Imagine you're watching a BBC interview with a scientist. The interviewer might say, "So, could you tell us what inspired your research on climate change?" And the scientist might reply, "Well, I've always been fascinated by how small changes in the environment can lead to global effects." From this short exchange, you're learning intonation, question formation, complex sentence structure, and even academic vocabulary, all in one moment. Here are a few ways you can use BBC English to improve your skills. Listen actively. Choose short BBC clips and repeat after the speakers. Take notes. Write down new phrases or expressions you hear. Imitate pronunciation. Focus on the tone, stress, and pauses. TV. Use subtitles wisely. Watch once with subtitles, then once without. Light. Summarize. Try to retell what you've heard in your own words. Remember, improving your English is not about learning hundreds of words overnight. It's about listening smartly and using language naturally. BBC English gives you that opportunity. Real voices, real conversations, and real English. When people talk about BBC English, they usually mean clear, standard British English, the kind you hear on BBC News, documentaries, or educational programs. It is known for its neutral accent, careful pronunciation, and rich vocabulary. BBC English is not about sounding perfect, it's about clarity and accuracy. By listening to BBC programs, you get exposed to natural conversations, idioms, and pronunciation patterns used by native speakers. So, how can BBC English improve your learning? First, it helps you understand real-world English. In IELTS or daily life, you'll hear many different accents, but BBC English gives you a strong foundation. Second, it improves your listening and pronunciation. By repeating phrases from BBC content, you naturally develop a better ear for rhythm and tone. Third, BBC English often uses academic and formal language, which is useful for IELTS writing and speaking. You learn how to express complex ideas in simple and elegant ways. Let's take an example. Imagine you were watching a BBC interview with a scientist. The interviewer might say, "So, could you tell us what inspired your research on climate change?" And the scientist might reply, "Well, I've always been fascinated by how small changes in the environment can lead to global effects." From this short exchange, you are learning intonation, question formation, complex sentence structures, and academic vocabulary all at once. Here are a few tips to use BBC English to improve your skills. Listen actively by choosing short BBC clips and repeating after the speakers. Take notes of new phrases or expressions you hear. Imitate pronunciation, focusing on tone, stress, and sentence rhythm. Use subtitles wisely. Watch once with subtitles, then once without. Finally, summarize what you heard in your own words. Remember, improving your English is not about learning hundreds of words overnight. It is about listening smartly and using language naturally. BBC English gives you that opportunity. Real voices, real conversations, and real English. BBC English is characterized by a neutral accent, precise pronunciation, and a wide-ranging vocabulary. It exemplifies clarity and eloquence, making it an excellent model for learners who aim to refine their listening comprehension, speaking accuracy, and overall linguistic sophistication. Listening to BBC content exposes you to natural expressions, idiomatic phrases, and varied sentence structures, which are essential for both IELTS preparation and real-world communication. Engaging with BBC English offers several benefits. Firstly, it improves your ability to comprehend authentic spoken English across different contexts. Whether you encounter formal interviews, academic discussions, or casual conversations, your ear becomes attuned to the rhythm, intonation, and nuances of native speech. Secondly, it enriches your vocabulary and grammatical awareness. By hearing complex sentence constructions, collocations, and precise word choices, you internalize patterns that elevate both your writing and speaking proficiency. Finally, it fosters critical listening skills, helping you discern key information, infer meaning, and interpret opinions, abilities that are invaluable for IELTS listening, reading, and speaking tasks. Consider a typical BBC interview with an environmental scientist. The interviewer may ask, "Could you elaborate on the factors that influenced your research into climate change?" The scientist might respond, "Certainly. My interest stemmed from observing how incremental environmental shifts can trigger widespread ecological consequences." From this brief exchange, learners acquire exposure to formal structures, academic vocabulary, and the natural cadence of British English. To maximize your learning, engage actively with the content. Repeat phrases to mimic pronunciation. Note down new expressions, and attempt to summarize what you hear in your own words. Integrate listening with speaking practice by responding aloud, which consolidates comprehension and production simultaneously. Over time, consistent exposure to BBC English sharpens your auditory perception, refines your diction, and enhances your ability to communicate with clarity and confidence. Ultimately, mastering English is less about memorizing words and more about cultivating a nuanced understanding of how the language is naturally used. BBC English provides a window into authentic communication, enabling you to absorb structures, intonation patterns, and vocabulary that elevate both academic performance and everyday fluency.